So that video that I had uploaded, that was a mirror of Pockets of the Future's video on Beyonce and Jay-Z's music video Family Feud, having a statue of the Virgin Mary, or not the actual real Virgin Mary. I need to make that clear because people get upset about this. The Catholic version, not just the Catholics too, but also essentially almost any version of the Virgin Mary, that we see outside of the Bible is a false representation of Mary. And they well, I guess I don't really know how to describe that better, but they have this representation of her in the background with devil horns. And the reason why I am bringing this up now is because this is essentially just going to replace that video that I had uploaded before, because after watching a recent video of Pockets of the Future, he had expressed his displeasure with people mirroring his videos. And even though the video that I mirrored from him, I gave him credit, I mentioned him, and I did not monetize the video because I don't monetize any of my videos. But if you see any videos monetized on my channel, this channel, Babylon Watch or Daylight Riders, is because the copyright holders of the material in the video has monetized it. They are getting the money. I'm not getting any money out of this, and I don't want any. So I have a day job, so I don't have to monetize videos. And if I did have to monetize videos, if I did come to a point where I didn't have money, then I would just leave YouTube and I would find another job. I would not do this for money. So anyway, so I made that video private. I don't really want to delete it, but for all intents and purposes, you can't watch it anymore. And that's just fine, because that's his business, that's his priority. If he chooses to keep his videos in-house and not have to compete with other channels for his videos, then that's fine. So for now, this will be the replacement to that video. And as you can see, that statue in the background of Mary clearly has devil horns on her head. Now, I know why that is. It is because the Queen of Heaven is Lucifer, and they know it. The elite know it. The Satanists know it. And this is why they often trot out these divas, so-called divas, these goddesses, who are often male devotees to the goddess transformed into women. And this is what the definition of a sodomite is. And they trot these men, or these sodomites, out there as representations of the goddess. And they would rather use a sodomite than they would use a real woman, because Satan hates real women. There's enmity between the serpent and the woman. So, and also in my opinion, it is like the ultimate power trip. Is that the word I'm looking for? It's the ultimate display of dominion. Like, if I was just like a really evil woman, if I was a really evil woman, that is exactly what I would do. I would turn every man into a woman, and every woman would be just treated like trash. And that's pretty much what we see in this civilization that we live in now. It's kind of like the opposite right now, because women are being tricked into thinking that they're going to get some kind of utopia, some kind of feminist utopia, where they're going to be the head over the man. If they want to be equal, they would just settle for the way things are now, because there isn't any so-called oppression of, that's not really it either. There isn't a large gap between the way men and women are treated in this country. So for them to claim that they are being oppressed, for them to claim that they are being held down or anything like that. It's just they've been tricked into thinking that is the case. A lot of the evidences that they so-called come up with aren't even true. But they have this carrot being dangled in front of their faces, right? And they're going to chase this carrot, and they are going to try to usurp authority over the man, and the civilization is going to come crumbling down. And when they do, when Satan finally accomplishes that goal, the women that Satan used to achieve that goal are going to get kicked to the side, because they were only a means to an end in the first place. So right now, it appears that Satan loves women, and that Satan wishes for women to do well and to be something in this society is actually not true. Just look at Eve. Look at what happened with Eve. Why did Eve listen to the serpent? Because Eve wanted to be wise. She wanted to be, God had told her something. A man told her something. You shall not do this. Do not do that, right? Don't eat from the fruit of that tree. And the serpent came along and said, well, you know what? He only told you that because he knows that in the day you eat this fruit, your eyes will be open and you will be like him, knowing good and evil. So she wanted to be wise and all of that, and she fell for the serpent's lie. So then what happened after that was when God arraigned her and Adam, Adam told her that, God told her that her desire would be to her husband and that he would rule over her. So up until that point, even though Adam was her head, he was not ruling over her. But now he was going to rule over her. He was going to use his natural, physicality and natural superiority physically to rule over her. When as before, she was not being ruled over that way. So now what we have here is a situation where Eve wanted to gain something that she already had. She already had equality. She was already like Adam. But she lost that. And that's the same thing that's going to happen with these women who are following the serpent. And I got off track there. I didn't even really mean to get into all that. I guess something else that I want to bring up too is that I've received a couple of messages, and this is nothing new really. And of course, I understand that people still have questions and people still have doubts about some of the things that I've been showing. And let me get a different. Don't want to keep you staring at the same thing for. But this is, if God, let's say, okay, if God tells you, if you feel like God is telling you or God is revealing something different to you, and that what I've been trying to show on this channel is not actually correct, well then go with that. Go with what, like the scripture says, let God be true and every man a liar. So I'm not trying to convince anyone. I'm not going to sit here and argue with, like, if God tells you something, I'm not going to argue with God. So it's not really my purpose anyway to convince people of something, to make people believe something. What it is, my original intent when I first began putting out videos on this subject was I was merely trying to understand what the Jezebel spirit was. Because in my opinion, if it existed, it was in the Bible. It had to be in the Bible or it didn't exist. And so I guess the next thing that came out of that was, once I realized that I had stumbled upon something that was bigger than I originally thought it was, Then I thought, okay, well, I need to. And it wasn't. I didn't do it quickly. I didn't do it immediately. I was sort of encouraged to move forward with what I believed I had, and so that's what I did. And so what I I was hoping would happen was that maybe some dialogue would get started, and we can, like the scripture says, we can reason together, and see what's really going on. Because I don't believe that God would give one person a revelation and not either give it to others or not have that person meet with other people, open up the Bible and go over it and figure out what the real truth was. And yes, I have been disappointed many times over the last 2 years, going on 3 years. June, it'll be 3 years. I've been very disappointed with the amount of people who were not willing to go over it with me. Because I understand, though, because it sounds completely ridiculous. I think it's troubling. The simple, I guess you could say the plain, simple understanding of the scripture is what I would mostly encourage people to go with. And also, it is the thing that is most comfortable as well. So and not only that, but when you come up with all your life, basically from the cradle to you may be 40, 50, 60 years old. And once you get to like 60 years old and you hear that something that you had always known was true was maybe not true, I don't know if there are very few worse feelings in the world. So it's troubling. It troubles people. I understand that because I've been through it. So it's taken almost all this time for me to finally get to the point where I am comfortable talking about it, like really comfortable. You'll see me behind the mic, in videos past, trying to explain this, but I wasn't really in my heart. I was still very, very troubled. So I don't want anybody to get the impression that I don't know what it's like. I don't know the feeling that you have, or I don't know how much it disturbs you or troubles you, because I do. And another thing but on my end, when I began to study this, I'm not trying to, I don't know how to make this, I'm just going to say it. All right. So as for me though, yes, I was troubled by what I was seeing, and I was scared, and I was terrified really of being deceived. And unfortunately, the research hadn't really been done on the Queen of Heaven and on the Whore of Babylon. Most of the research you will find is dealing with a city, but I haven't seen much research dealing with the Whore of Babylon as a spirit, as possibly the spirit of whoredoms, or that woman of Zechariah 5. And so I had to do that. I had to do that work. And mostly it was because I was trying to make sure I wasn't being deceived. So, like I said, don't get the impression that I don't know, that I'm just on YouTube just saying stuff, right? Just out of pride or out of whatever it is that makes a person get on YouTube and say some crazy stuff, and for craps and giggles, I guess, and not really feel any fear of God at all. So I'm making this a little bit longer than I wanted to, but I'm just trying to make sure that I say everything that I need to say so I don't have to make a second video. So again, yeah, in the end, I guess after all of this, the only way we'll know if it's true or not is when we get there to the other side and God reveals everything and tells us whether or not it was really true. So yeah, at the end of the day, does it? I mean, it matters because it's true. In my opinion, it's true, and it matters because it's just one less hiding place that the adversary has. Is one less advantage that the adversary has if we understand this. And it's also well, I guess there are other benefits that I could think of, but I just don't really have the time to think of it right now. And so yeah, but I guess in a way it doesn't matter as well, because you still have to fight this battle anyway, regardless of where the adversary is hiding. And the fact of the matter is, if you truly belong to God, He is not going to allow you to be deceived in the end. So in some ways, no, it doesn't matter. And I guess it's a little bit, in that way, it does kind of feel like sometimes, I got to be honest with you, it does feel like a waste of time anyway, because I know that most people who hear this will not believe it anyway. So, and most people who hear this won't be bothered or can't be bothered to investigate to see if it's true or not. Because when people come to things that are too difficult to grasp or just what they'll do is they'll cop out. They'll take a cop out and say, well, I can't grasp Satan being a woman, and I'm just not even really going to even try. I'm just going to, okay, so he's both then. He's both male and female. And I mean, there won't be a scripture in the Bible for that, but that's just a cop out. Or they'll say he's disguising himself as the whore of Babylon. And like I said, I think that just comes from just not willing to be able to, maybe not willing, but just not being able to deal with the possible truth. It's just too troubling for people. And I understand that completely. So I know that since most people won't be bothered to really investigate it, most people won't be able to understand it or deal with it at all, they won't believe it. And so it kind of does feel like a waste of time to be sitting here doing research. And well, I've already done most of the research. I'm not really doing as much heavy research as I was in the past. But I guess in the end, it does feel like a waste of time to have done most of what I've done, and most people won't believe it anyway. It's just the way it is. But back to the other point that I was saying at the beginning, if you do the research, you do the studying, and God reveals to you that is not true, then you go with that. You go with what God says. You don't let me or anybody else try to convince you otherwise. So I guess that's pretty much all I had to say. Sorry if this went on too long, but anyway, thanks for listening and thanks for watching, and may the Most High bless you. In the name of His only begotten Son, Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ.